What is Moore's Law? Moore's Law is a prediction made by Gordon E. Moore, co-founder of Intel, in 1965. He observed that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles approximately every 2 years, though the cost of computers is halved. So, this is the observation made by Gordon E. Moore in 1965. The, the prediction became the guiding principle for the semiconductor industry for over 5 decades. Moore's law: the complexity for minimum component costs has increased at a rate of roughly a factor of 2 per year. Certainly, over the short term, this rate can be expected to continue if not to increase. Over the long term, the rate of increase is a bit more uncertain, although there is no reason to believe it will not remain nearly constant for at least 10 years. That means by 1975, the number of components per integrated circuit for minimum cost will be 65,000. So the original observation was number of transistor doubles every 12 months in 1965, revised in 1975 every 24 months closely to reality. It was not a law of physics, but an empirical observation plus roadmap for industries. Moore's law states that computer chip complexity doubles approximately every year. Computer chips get more complex and powerful. Components like transistors double in number each year. It has led to smaller, faster, and more powerful computers. It's a it is a fundamental building blocks of chips. These transistors are like shrinking transistor size allows more per chip. Example 1971 Intel 4004. There were like 2300 transistors. But in 2022, Apple M1 Ultra has 114 billion transistors. That is the difference between 1971 till 2022. DNAT scaling. As transistors shrink, power consumption per transistor decrease proportionally, allowed higher frequency without huge power increase. Short-term prediction. The, the trend of doubling components per chip will continue. Com- Computer advancement every year. Long-term uncertainty. Long-term growth is uncertain but may remain constant for at least 10 years. This represents transistor size. Smaller nodes equal to more transistors, faster and more efficient chips. Physical limit. Silicon atoms are about 0.2 nm wide, can shrink like forever. 1975 prediction. This estimated that 65,000 components per chip by 1975. Accurate prediction led to tech advancements. Computers became smaller and faster. This enabled exponential growth in CPU and GPU performance, made personal computers, smartphones, cloud computing possible. 2-year doubling. Number of transistors on a microchip doubles every 2 years. Increase in speed and capability of our computers every 2 years, and cost would have been halved. Growth is exponential. The machinery size will be decreased faster and cheaper in time. Supercomputers followed Moore's law closely. Example 1993 Intel Paragon supercomputer, 143 G-flops. 2022 Frontier supercomputer. The cost per transistor dropped drastically. In 1960, it was approximate to $1 per transistor. Today, a few billion transistors cost less than $1. Moore's law acted as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Chip makers invested having to keep pace created as 500 plus billion semiconductor industry. Ending of Moore's law. Physical limits reached by 2020. Cooling transistors became challenging. shift to bigger dice and finer dimensions.
So in 1975, mood change is prediction, and there is no room left to squeeze anything out of being clever. Going forward from here, we had to depend on two size factor, bigger dice, and finer dimensions. He stated that the chip complexity would double every 18 months instead of every year. This shift came because engineers had already optimized design as such as possible, and no room was left to squeeze anything out of being clever. So, so he used the new rate of projection beyond 1975, and he said the future growth had to rely on two size factor, bigger dies and finer dimensions, smaller transistors, so more fit into this small chip. Die is basically a small block of semiconductor like silicon, which is integrated circuit is fabricated. Next. So by 2004, computer chip clock speed had reached to a point where if they were made any faster, the chip would either get hot and they would eventually melt. Hence, the manufacturer added more processor core instead of increasing the transistor. They use implicit parallelism in programming. Some processors rely on implicit programming in parallelism in programming language to exploit the parallel computing. Chips could not simply keep getting faster because higher clock speed produces so much heat and that chip would either melt. And to continue the performance growth, manufacturers shifted strategies. More cores were added, and this meant instead one ultra-fast processor, computers had multiple processor cores working together. Programming adapted with parallelism. Next. So memory disk and speed argument. The performance bottleneck arose because memory did not keep up with CPU speed. Processor clock's rate was increasing at the rate of like 40% per year, while the memory access, which is DRAM access speed, increased only at a rate of 10% per year. So CPU became faster. They often had to wait for memory, slowing the overall performance. Processor clock rate increased faster than DRAM. So to overcome this, designer used the principle of locality. Programmer reuse the same data and instruction frequently. The principle helped design, catch, and guide parallel algorithms and memory optimizations. Next. Data communication arguments. So with the rise of internet, computation became distributed. So instead of relying on one computer, many computers could work together over the network. As an example, SETI at the rate home, searching for extraterrestrial signals, folding at the rate home. So for huge data set, uh, data volumes is too large to move efficiently. Solution was to use the parallel techniques across the network, meaning computation happens closer to where the data is stored rather than the vice versa. SETI, a search for extraterrestrial intelligence, uses distributed computing to analyze the radio signals from space. The goal was to detect the possible extraterrestrial communication which was based on the distributed computing, folding, and use the ideal computing power from volunteer worldwide, focus on problem folding, drug discovery, and molecular dynamics are some of the examples. Thank you.